Papaguera? Papaguera. I think that's Papaguera. North and west through El Infierno to the red waters of the Colorado where the Yumas had reed huts. Then to the west to the land that stank of death until the last end of the trail was smothered in the soft green of Californian valleys. Good ground for the seed of faith. I'm having a hard time understanding the setting, but it seems pretty awesome. I might have to draw this at some point. Anyway, the overland trials of the Padres became the single trail from Mexico to gold where the madness of 49 called to all peoples. Ah, the gold rush, right? Is that? Probably not. Then the road of the dead men took its toll by the score and double score. Then men fought for precious water at Tahina's Atlas. Tina, Tinajas Atlas. Many crosses of the Malpais mark the sand there. I only know that word because of New Vegas. Banners lurked in the Teal Wells, 90 miles over blistering desert from the nearest water, to shoot men for the gold they were bringing back from California. The pockmarked woman, mad with thirst, so runs the legend, walked at nights with the Virgin in the flats beyond Pitaquito and found water with celestial candles burning all about the pool. Okay, that sounds awesome. Water. So passed the race of the gold madness. A railroad was laid down from the Pacific eastward across the desert. Ah, manifest destiny. What once was called Papaguera had become known as Sonora in Mexico and Arizona in the Republic of the North. Is it Sonora or Sonora? I guess Sonora. It doesn't have the thing. This has been pretty accurate, right? Anyway, the road of the dead man at its California end became a way through green and watered valleys where bungalows of mushroom overnight along its course in southwestern Arizona, northern Sonora. It laps to a faint trail from the waterhole to waterhole of a heat-scorched desert. Today, this forgotten remnant of a high road of adventure and hot romance exists a streak in an incandescent inferno of sand and lava slag, wherein death is the omnipresent fact. Occasionally, a prospector putters along in dreary stretches, chipping at ledge and rimrock. A papago or cocapa creeps over calash-stained flats with baskets of salt from the Pinacate marshes near the Gulf. That is all. The dead men hold the road inviolable. It is dust of the desert. That is all, did I say? No, the spirits of romance and the shape of illusion have not completely passed from El Camino to De los Muertos. From El Camino de los Muertos. Okay. Remains that tale which carries itself over a span of a century and a half, linking lives of the present to lives of men and women whose very graves long since passed from sight of folk. A tale strangely like the desert trail along whose course its episodes of hot passion and swift action befell. For its beginnings are laid in a mirage of an elder day, which we of the present can see but dimly, and its ending is beyond the horizon of today. Would you know the full story of Los Mission de los Cuertos Evangelitas? How the baleful spell of its green pearls of the Virgin worked upon the fortune of the house of Donajou, and how the last of the houses wrought expiation for the sins of the forebear through heroism and fire of a great love. Do you know the full story? I say, you must see me with the substance of a beginning. No more can one plump into the middle of this last of the romance tales of the road of dead men than could one drop into the road itself midway through its length. Butter. I don't really have all the uh, puzzles, but what I'm assuming is this is just set dressing, right? A big desert. Anyway, a king in Spain once followed a practice of careless munaf- munificence. I can I translate that word? Can I can. Okay, let's check what that means real quick. Search for this action on the net. Yes, what does that mean? Meaning, no, I hate you, AI. Okay, large, open-handedness. How do I pronounce it? Oh, munificence. The King of Spain watched followed a practice of careless munificence. Whenever one of his generals in the Great Wars appeared worthy of reward, His Majesty used to ink the ball of his thumb with the grand and free gestures. He would make a print somewhere on the map of Mexico, then called New Spain. Then the lucky general, taking this patent of royal favor across the seas with him, would hire surveyors to translate the print of Philip's thumb into terms of square miles of the domain. His name was Philip? Okay. Anyway. Uh, these square miles were his and his heirs to govern like little kings, with justice in their hands, the church to give them countenance, and Indians by the hundreds to serve them under a modified code of slavery. No man has lived since as did those magnificent possessors of Philip's thumbprints. The, the Rancho de Refugio, in the little known reaches of Papagueria, was one of the fiefs of the king. Michael O'Donoghue, a wild man of red Irish who had fought English kings and queens under the banner of Spain, had come by the grant originally and had taken the Lady of Granada to the New World to bear him heirs worthy of their inheritance. Michael O'Donoghue became Don Miguel O'Donoghue, Lord of the Desert Principality, and a power at the Viceroy's court in the city of Mexico. So, like, he became an evil advisor, is what I'm guessing? I think. Anyway, he established two rigid precedents to be followed by the House of O'Donoghue: pride of race and jealous conservation of the family principality. It became a rule of the O'Donoghue that none of the clan marry outside of pure Castilian blood, Irish excepted if Irish could be found, and a rule that, come what might, no Donoghue passed title to so much as a foot of the Rancho del Refugio. It was a day in April, the year 1780, that the clan O'Donoghue came to the mission of four evangelists to lend the dignity of their presence to the solemn service of rededication. Honestly, I'm having a bit of a hard time following along with this. What I can get is dude fights the war. He becomes a big, important political figure. Can't marry anyone outside of Castilian blood, so I guess I guess royalty only. Okay, and then four evangelists. Okay. It was the day in April in the year 1780 that the Clan O'Donoghue came to a mission of the four evangelists to lend the dignity of their presence to the solemn service of rededication. More than that, Don Patriarch O'Donoghue, venerable head of the house and master of Casa O'Donoghue, in the oasis named the Garden of... God damn, this dude has a lot of titles. Was to come to witness personal triumph, where it had been his money that had gone to Franciscan College to be used in the rebuilding of the frontier post of God after the Apaches had raided and burned it 50 years before. One of his own sons, Padre Feliz, had been the architect and builder of the restored mission and was to continue the priest in charge. Padre Feliz was fourth in line of O'Donoghue's to take order, one from each generation since the establishment of the grant. The O'Donoghue's grandchildren, cousins and kin by marriage, had ridden 5 days and upwards from various sections of El Rancho del Refugio, up and through the altered desert to this remote sanctuary of God in the country of the Sand People. Mm. They came by the way called the Road of the Dead Man. Its asperities were softened by the quick desert spring, which tipped each thorny cactus cone with candelabra tufts of golden and carmine flowers. Oh, that sounds cool and cute. The desert's usual heat was tempered by the snows that lay unnamed in unnamed mountains to the north. They came in lengthy caravans. They came in lengthy caravans of horses and burros, with half-naked Indians to herd the goats and the yearling steers that were to be barbecued for the secular feast to follow the religious rites. With a half company of foot soldiers from the Presidio del Refugio to guard the company against roving Apaches, Indian maids on muleback to serve the needs of their mistresses, regally mounted on ponies of the Cortez strain. Baggage porters, cooks, roustabouts, fully 100 of the clan of Donahue, and satellites on pilgrimage over the road of dead men. All the O'Donoghue were there but one, El Rojo, the red one. The red one was he because of the throwback to the red Irish strains of his fighting ancestors Don Miguel. Red with the pugnacious red of Donegal was his hair. His cheeks had none of the solid tan of the Spanish, but were dyed with the stain of Irish fog winds. I guess that means he looks drunk? I don't know. His eyes were blue lamps of the devil. A fatherless grandson of Don Pedriac, Rojo had played in the wild youth of the city of Mexico, with only occasional visits of penance to the Casa O'Donoghue and the desert country of the north, until when the tangs of youth was still his, he attainted his name with scandal, followed his former expulsion from the clan to the hands of the old aristocrat, his grandfather, and the closing of all doors of his kindred in Papagueria against, I don't know. El Rojo had ridden out to the wide world of sands and mountains and outcasts, but with a laugh on his lips, this full year before the gathering of the family at the mission of the four evangelists. When El Rojo had turned lone wolf, the sadness that was not the sadness of shame settled upon the heart of one of the old Donahue. Frisia Mayor Terena, I don't know, a cousin of the flowers of girlhood that caused old Hermosillo to be named Little Garden. I'm assuming that's Hermosillo. I don't know. Sat behind her barred window on many a night with heart wild to hear once more a love song only El Rojo knew how to sing. Frisia Mayor Terena, all fire under the cold ice of her schooled and decorous features, knew that the ugh, knew that ugh use words. It's sorry, knew that the reckless devil with the flame blue eyes had come to strum a love call on his guitar. She would go with him into banishment and worse. So on this pilgrimage to the shrine of the four holy men, the girl who rode with her father and brothers allowed her imagination to frame a figure in the phantom horseman on every ragged mountain top. At each campfire along the road of dead men, when the vast sea of desert round up was stilled under the stars, Felicia Mediterrana sat with tiny pointed chin cupped in a propping palm and seemed to hear a clink of the mule's hobble and a chain the opening chord of a song of songs. Red as the pomegranate flower, my love, the heart of him who sings. Cavalcade came into mission when firing of guns with shouts. The reed and mud huts of the sand people beyond the cloisters discoursed their shouting savages to welcome the travelers. Padre Feliz, a gaunt man with the face of ascetic, above the folds of his rough brown cowl, hurried out from the doors of the new sanctuary to meet and give embrace to his father, Don Pedriac, and then in turn to all of his next of kin. Behind him followed his two novitiate priests who were with Padre Feliz the only white man in all the stretch of Papagueria. I still don't know how to pronounce that. From the Rancho del Refugio westward to the Sea of Cortez. 5 days' travel were they from the nearest of their kind. To the west and north stretched unguessed leagues of the desert. Only the road of the dead men linked them with the first California missions 30 days over the western horizon. Missionaries of the Sand People was Padre Feliz. To that branch of the Papago tribe of tractable Indians lived about the east shore of the Sea of Cortez and on eastward through the desert of Altar. The rebuilt mission stood in the middle of a small oasis, which was fed by a stream down and out of the burnt mountains not a mile behind. One of those rare and furtive desert trickles of water which hides in the sand most months of the year. I'm sorry, I couldn't follow the structure of that sentence too well. Uh, anyway, uh, the diminutive mission, the diminutive mission building, with its rounded dome of sunburned brick, lifted in sharp outlines above the vivid and water-fed greenery of the oasis mesquite and palo verde. God damn it! But the whole oasis and house of God was dwarfed by the bleak immensity of the flanking mountains leaping sheer from plain to push their fire-scarred summits against the sky. Okay. Before the choir of Indian voices intoned the opening prayer of the dedication service of the Pax of O'Donoghue caravan, yielded precious things. I'm sorry. Dedication to this. Before the choir of Indian voices intoned there was a monstrance of heavy loads studded at its tips with precious gems. You see, the main problem I'm having is I'm pretty sure this uses like not a different sentence structure, although it kind of might have a bit of that, but like spellings and phrasings and descriptions that I'm not sure we use a lot these days, right? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just dumb. There's something about the writing. I'm having a bit of a hard time. Anyway, this was the personal offering of Don Patriarch to the shrine of the four evangelists, a chalice of gold, a great altar crucifix of gold inlaid with the mother of pearl, a pair of candelabra wrought of chased silver and communion service of the same metal represented the pious contributions to the rest of the clan O'Donoghue. But most precious of all, the altar treasure was the double string of the pearls of the Virgin, which by miracle had been saved from plunder of the Apaches when the savages from the north had come burning and murdering 50 years before. For half a century, the lucent rope of moonbeam green had lain to the treasure vaults of the Franciscan College in the city of Mexico, awaiting this hour of restoration. Green pearls fletched from the shell beads of the Sea of Cortez by Indian converts. Pearls hinting of caves of ocean by their shimmering changeful luster. Pearls to fire the lust of the covetous, even from their hallowed place about the throat of the Virgin. Padre Feliz held the glistening rope of lights high in dedication, and as reverently he draped them upon the bosom of the sacred effigy of the clan O'Donoghue, and then all dark-skinned children of the mission sang a Gloria. Gloria. Now, an untoward incident jarred the merriment of the feasting that followed the rededication of the mission. When whole beeves were being lifted from the roasting pits and the skins of wine and tequila were passed from table to table, beneath the flowering mesquite trees, a column of dust strode across the desert from the east and spawned two horsemen upon the oasis. One, a naked Indian of the stature of a giant, reined in his horse at a far fringe of the mesquite as befitting a servant. The second rode boldly to the circle of tables. Silver clinked from bridle and stirrup leathers of his magnificent white thoroughbred. The rider's silver-trimmed hat came off with a sweeping bow to include all there, and the red of his hair was like molten copper in the sun. El Rojo! Was the startled cry on every lip. Men scattered to their feet as if to combat some overt move of an enemy. God be with you all, came the Red One's speech, a polite greeting, made all the more ironical. Ironical. Now that's a new word. By the reckless upturn of his lips in a grin and the steely lights that flashed from his blue eyes. And God, or his gentle vicar, Pedro Feliz, gave me a place at the table with my noble kin, Orojo added lightly. I've traveled far to have my cup here on this day of celebration. The laughing horseman let his eyes dance over the circle of faces until they came to rest for just an instant upon one. He saw cheeks flaming, eyes filled with wonder, and full lips parted to give a heart its song. Frisia Maltrena was seeing a vision in the life. Quickly, Rojo's glance leaped off as if to shield the girl from contamination. The venerable Don Patriarch, head of Clan O'Donoghue, was on his feet now and trembling. We know you not, sir. We must ask you begone. Rojo caused his horse to rear perilously. Before hoofs touched the ground, hardly 2 paces from the old man, the rider again had made his full arm bow. He spoke with mock respect. Sanctuary, my grandsire. I and my servant claim sanctuary of Holy Church. We have ridden far, and good Uncle Feliz cannot deny us the charity of his order. Don Pedro was being swiftly mastered by his rage when the friar to whom the unwelcome horseman pushed pushed his way to the side of the older man. He speaks the truth, sire, urged the man with the brown habit. Here on God's ground we cannot be guilty of uncharity. Then, looking into the laughing blue eyes of his nephew, I ask that you descend, sir, and refresh yourself and your servant until such time that you take the road. So all merriment in the oasis of the four evangelists were stilled. There, in the single green spot on the league of the road of the dead man, was wrought a comedy. A prelude it was to a swift tragedy. The clan O'Donoghue, its satellites and retainers, ate and drank in silence, and apart from his companies sat El Rojo with his naked copper giant alone. From time to time El Rojo lifted his cup as if in ceremonious health to his kin. Only Frisia Meritorena read the glint in his blue eyes which told the toast was to her, and what would eventuate. Near sundown, El Rojo and his Indian rode off to the west, but not until the outlaw had spent a few minutes alone in the mission. Padre Feliz saw him at prayer before the altar of the Virgin, and was deeply touched that the spirit of religion had not altogether departed from the family scapegrace. In the dark of midnight, Felicia Materna had cried herself to sleep, was awakened, who had cried herself to sleep, was awakened by the touch of a hand stretched under the side of the tent where she slept with the women of the party. A silver embroidered hat was slipped under the tent to rest on her arm. The girl dressed herself in a folly of love and terror and stole outside. The waiting figure of El Rojo's giant Indian detached itself from the shadow of the mesquite, mentioning her to the tethered horse. Blind infatuation for her hero lover brooked no questioning on the girl's part. She mounted and followed her guide through the alleys of heavy shade. A single dreadful cry sounded from the open door of the mission. A minute later, a vague horseman spurred to her side and stopped the beating of her heart with flaming kisses. The silent desert saw 3 phantom shapes on horseback. Ooh, running away. You love to see it in the name of love. Dawn brought revelation and the beginning of that cycle of tragedy and dreadful pursuit of Nemesis which was to overwhelm Clan O'Donoghue. Padre Feliz murdered at the altar of the Virgin, where he had tried to stay the hand of impiety. The green pearls of the Virgin gone. A daughter of the house of O'Donoghue had flown with a thief and a murderer. Oh, this is some big revenge stuff. Okay. One more word and his mirage of years long deads fade. The curse that all Papa Gueria saw descend upon Clan O'Donoghue spared not even the sanctuary of the four evangelists. A year to the night of the Virgin's despoliation, the Apaches came again on this frontier post of the church. Can we And after a spiteful siege, they slew the white priests, burned the mission, and carried the Indian converts over the mountaintop into slavery. The Franciscans dared not rebuild on such accursed grounds. The lands of the desert, which moved sand mountains in their eternal sweep, played upon the ruined missions year on year to blot even a vestige of it from the eyes of man. God's hand, so the Indians had it, shook the mountains behind the little oasis so that the source of the tiny life giving spring was blocked. The green vanished like a mist, and scabrous desert cacti crept on prickly feet. The Mission de los Cuartos Evangelitas became legend. Okay, I think I'm going to stop it right there. I just wanted to try and test my voice a little bit. I had a bit of trouble following at first, but I mean, once it stops with the description, I mean, I know I can't really get mad at set dressing, but like, there is an entire chapter dedicated to the hotel in Trivia de Sierra Madre. I mean, it's good, but anyway. Uh, Once the plot starts kicking in a little bit more, it's easier to follow. I'm not sure if I want to continue this, but it was fun. Maybe next time.